Hi guys, in the last session we have seen about the conditional statement or decision making statements in the Java, and in this session we are going to see about the looping statement and the jump statements in the Java. So first let's see what is the need of looping statements or loops in the Java. So as example, let's say we are printing automation testing in the console, and this I am printing only one time. So let's say I want to print the same statement, okay, again and again, let's say 10 times, 100 times in the console. So for that purpose, I have to write this print statement that number of times. Let's say you want to print it for 100 times, you need to write 100 print statement in the Java code. So no doubt automation testing will be printed 100 times as per your requirement in the console, but here we are just increasing the size of our code. So we are performing the same action, we are just writing the statement again and again in our Java code. So in Java or any other programming language, we should try to reuse our code as much as possible. So by using the loops in the Java, we should be able to execute block of code again and again as number of times as per our requirement. Okay, so using loops, we don't need to write this statement 100 times. We will write it once, and by using the loop, we should be able to print this statement in the console as number of times as per our requirement. So in the Java, there are three types of the looping statements: for loop, while loop, and do while loop. So all these loops executes block of code multiple times based on some condition. Okay, so instead of writing same code repeatedly, we will be using these loops to make our code more efficient and more reusable. So let's see these loops one by one. So first is for loop. So for loop is mainly used when you exactly know how many times you want to run the loop. Okay, so based on some condition, we will decide how many times that for loop will be executed. So this is the basic syntax for the for loop in the Java. So here we have the for, and in the round bracket we have three things. One is initialization, one is condition, and another one is update. So initialization is typically used to initialize a counter variable. Okay, so that initialization will happen only once at the starting of your for loop. Then we will have the condition. So the condition, that means the how many times you want to execute the loop. Okay, so as long as condition is true, this for loop will be executed. So this condition is very important. So once condition is true, whatever code you have written in this curly bracket will be executed. So once execution is done, it will go to the update statement. So update is nothing but a increment or decrement of the counter variable. Okay, so as per our requirement, we can increase the counter or we can decrease the counter. Okay, so once increment or decrement is happen, it is again going to check the condition. So if condition is true, again it will go inside the loop and execute these statements. Okay, so as long as this condition is true, this for loop is going to execute this code, whatever you have written. So once this condition is false, then our control will come out of the for loop. So for the same statement, let's say I want to print it 10 times. So let's try to use for loop here. So for, and here we have the curly bracket. So whatever code you have to execute again and again repeatedly, that code you have to write inside this for loop curly bracket. So we need to do the initialization first. So let's say I am taking integer I variable and I am going to initialize it with the 1. So let's say I want to execute or I want to print this statement 10 times in the console. That means 10 times this for loop should be executed. So what should be the condition? So counter variable I should be less than or equals to 10, semicolon, and I plus plus. Okay, so we initialize I variable is equals to 1. Then it will going to check the condition if 1 is less than or equal to 10. Okay, so this condition is true when I is equals to 1. So it will go inside the loop and it will execute whatever Java code you have written. Okay, so for now it will print this automation testing in the console. Then it will go to the increment part. So here we are incrementing the value of I plus plus. That means I will become 2. So 2 is less than equal to 10. That means condition is again true. Again it will execute this statement. So at the last I become 10. Okay, so this condition will be true again and this statement will be executed. But here I plus plus, so now I becomes 11. So 11 is not less than or equal to 10. So now this condition is false when I is equal to 11. So this will break the loop. Okay, so for loop will be executed as long as this condition is true. So this statement printed 10 times. Okay, so for the same statement or same for loop, we can use the decrement also. So here I is starting with the 10. 10 is greater than 0, right? So it is going to execute the statement. Now I minus minus. So I will become 9 here. So again this condition is true, again this statement will be executed. So this will be executed when I is greater than 0. So at the last, when I is become 0, this condition will be false. So control come out of this for loop when I becomes 0. So again automation testing printed 10 times in the console. So now let's look at the while loop. So while loop in the Java repeatedly going to execute the block of code again as long as the specified condition remains true. So let's look at the syntax for the while loop. While we have round bracket, in the round bracket we will have only condition. So we don't have any initialization or increment decrement here inside this round bracket for the while loop. So while inside bracket we have some condition. So as long as this condition will be true, this loop will be executed. Okay, so whatever statement you have written inside this while loop will be executed repeatedly until the condition becomes false. So once condition is false, this while loop will be breaked. So same for loop we are going to convert into the while loop now. So how we can do it? So here I will write while curly bracket. So inside the round bracket I have to write some condition, and this is the statement we want to execute. So here we need to provide some condition. So for the condition I need to create one variable first. So this is my condition. So as long as value of y is greater than 0, whatever code you have written inside this while loop, please execute it. Okay, and after each execution decrease the value of I. So here I am writing I minus minus. So this is the statement we printed by using the for loop, and we are printing the same statement by using the while loop. So I is 10, I will start with 10, 10 is greater than 0, yes, it is going to execute this statement. After execution, it will execute this statement I minus minus. Okay, so value of I will become 9 now. So 9 is greater than 0, again it will go inside the while loop and execute this statement. So every time this statement will be executed, value of I will be decreased by 1. So once condition is false, this loop will be breaked. Okay, so our while loop got executed 10 times. So now let's look at the do while loop. So when there is a situation when you want to execute a loop body at least once, even if the condition is false, in that case we can use this do while loop. Okay, so this do while loop in the Java also called as a post tested loop. Okay, that means it is going to execute the body of the loop at least once before checking the condition. So this is the syntax for the do while loop in the Java. So in case of while loop, we are going to check the condition first. If condition is true, then only we will execute this code inside the while loop. But here you can see in the do while loop, we have written the statement we want to execute again and again in the do block. Okay, so execute this code first and then go inside the while to check the condition. Okay, so this condition in the while loop will be checked after we execute this statement for the first time. So regardless of this condition is true or false, for the first time this statement will be executed. So whenever you want to execute block of code at least once, regardless of this condition is true or false, in that case you can use this do while loop in the Java. So same while loop we are going to use here. So we will require some counter variable where we are starting it with the 10. Okay, so here I will write the do block, do, and inside the we need to write our statement that we want to execute. Okay, so this is our condition, I is greater than 0. So first it is going to execute these statements. When I is 10, it is going to execute line by line, right? So first do block will be executed, not the condition. So this statement will be printed for the first time. Then it is going to check the condition if I is greater than 0 or not. If condition is true, again it will execute this statement. Okay, so to understand it, I am going to make this condition false. If I is less than 0. So here we are starting I value with the 10, and here we are checking value of I should be less than 0. So 10 is not less than 0. So this condition is false. So before we check this condition, this statement will be printed by default. Okay, so this is the guarantee this do while loop is going to provide you. At least once, whatever code you have written in the do block will be executed without checking the condition. So you can see automation testing printed at least once. Now if we change the condition, I greater than 0, run it again. Okay, so this loop is executing infinite times because we are starting I with 10 and we are not incrementing or decrementing the value of I. So this condition is always true. So that's why it is executing this loop infinite number of times. So in the do block, after executing this statement, we need to decrease the value of our counter variable I. So I minus minus. So this time it executed only 10 times. So now coming to the jump statements. So we have break and continue statements in the Java, which considered as a jump statements. So why do we require this break and continue in the Java programming? So sometimes while executing any for loop or while loop, we need to exit that loop and don't want to execute that loop anymore after a certain condition. Okay, so once condition is satisfied, we don't want to execute that loop. We need to exit from that loop. So for that purpose, we can use the break statement. And using this continue statement, we will be skipping the current iteration of the loop and we will go to the next iteration directly. So using the loop in the Java, we are executing the same code in every iteration. Okay, so sometimes we need to skip the current iteration and go to the next iteration directly. So in that case, this continue statement will help you. So let's understand with the simple example. So let's use the for loop, and using this for loop I am going to print the number values from 1 to 10. Okay, so as long as I is less than or equal to 10, this loop will be executed, and where we are printing the value of I. So we are getting output from 1 to 10. So while executing this for loop, after certain condition, I don't want to execute this for loop anymore. Okay, so once that condition is true, control should come out of this for loop. So for that purpose, we can use the break statement. Okay, so how we can put the condition? Using the if block. So if I is equal to let's say 5. Okay, so if value of I becomes 5, I want to exit the for loop. So inside this if block, I will use break statement like this. Okay, just write break and semicolon. So once this break is executed, our control come out of this for loop and this will not print value of I anymore. Okay, so it will print value of I from 1 to 4, and once value of I become 5, it will come inside this if block and this break will be executed. So now if you run, we only get value from 1 to 4. Okay, so this is how break will be used. So instead of this break, this time let's use continue. So once this continue is executed, it will skip the current iteration. So once value of I becomes 5, it will go inside the if block and this continue will be executed. And due to this continue statement, it will not execute this statement. Okay, so value of I will not be printed when I is equals to 5. So it will directly increase the value of I to 6, then check the condition and then again come inside the for loop. So this time you will get the value of I from 1 to 4, 5 will be skipped and then again 6 to 10. So in the output you can see 5 is skipped and all other values are printed. Okay, so as per your requirement, you can use this break statement and continue statements in the automation testing framework as well. If certain condition is met, we can break the loop completely using the break statement and we can skip the current iteration and go to next iteration directly using the continue statement. So let me show you one example for nested loops. So nested loop, that means one loop inside another loop. Okay, for example, I will use two for loops here. So inside this for loop, again I am using another for loop. So this is called as a nesting of the loops in the Java. So this is our outer loop and this is called as a inner loop. So for every value of this j, this for loop will be executed 5 times because we are starting k value from 1 and we are checking it is less than or equals to 5. Okay, so for every value of this j, this inner loop will be executed 5 times. Okay, so let's try to print something here. So for example, I am going to print instead of next line, I am going to print this star here. So for every row, we will get star, and how many times we will get the star? 5 times. Okay, so this will consider as a row, and in every row, this will be considered as a cell. So in every row, we are going to print the star. How many times? 5 times. It will check k is equals to 1 and k is less than equal to 5. So for every value of this j, this star will be printed 5 times in that row. And here we are using this system.out.print. So it will not go to the next line directly. It will print the star in same line. So that's why we will be able to see the star in a row. So once inner loop is exited, we need to go to the next line. So when j is equals to 1, this inner loop executed 5 times where we are printing the star in a same line. So once inner loop is exited, when k becomes 6, we go to the next line in the console. Now j becomes 2. So j equal to 2 also, this inner loop will be executed 5 times. Okay, so this will continue when j becomes 5. Right? So outer loop will be executed 4 times and inner loop will be executed 5 times. So we will get 4 rows, and in every row we will get star 5 times in that row. So for this nesting of the loops, if you use the break statement, depends upon where you have used the break statement, that particular loop will be exited. Okay, for example, inside this inner loop, I am using some condition. If k is equals to 3, then break the inner loop. So once k becomes 3, this inner loop will be breaked because we have used the break statement inside this inner loop. Similarly, instead of break, if I use the continue statement here, it will skip the iteration for this inner loop. It will not impact anything for the outer loop. Okay, so using this condition, if we run it now, this star will be printed only 4 times because when k is equal to 3, we are going to the next iteration directly. So now if I apply break to the outer loop, so let's say I am using some condition. If j becomes 3, then break the loop. So now this break is applied to the outer loop. So once j becomes 3, this outer loop will not be executed further. So due to this outer loop will be executed only 2 times when j is equal to 1 and 2. Okay, and due to this continue statement, this inner loop will be executed only 4 times. So I think that is all for this session. We have seen about the different loops in the Java: for loop, while loop and do while loop. And while executing these loops, inside the loops, once condition is met, we can break the loop using the break statement, or we can skip the current iteration and go to the next iteration by using the continue statements in the Java. So thank you all for watching. I will see you in the next video soon.